After performing my glorious process of bashing my head against the wall to think of new video ideas, I released a video covering some of the most absurd guest characters within the fighting game genre. And after being blown away by Bill Clinton beating up Shaquille O'Neal, I had an idea, I had a thought. Instead of focusing exclusively on weird guest characters, what if I focus on weird original fighters created by a game's development team? Think about it, guest combatants are a bit odd because they bring wildly different aesthetics and gameplay styles to a pre-existing franchise. But what can those who didn't make the jump from third-party IP bring to the table? Well, that's what we're here to find out. If it wasn't obvious by now, the only quote-unquote rule for today's video is that none of these characters, except for those from crossover games, can originate from other properties. And I've also tried to choose some more obscure fighters here and there just to keep things interesting. Get ready to be gobsmacked, dear viewer, as we jump down the rabbit hole of really weird fighting game characters. You know, choosing an oddball fighter from the Marvel vs. Capcom series is much harder than it seems, because, well, they're all kind of weird. But with that said, I feel that now is the perfect opportunity to highlight Shuma-Gorath, Marvel's colourful squid tentacle demon thing. According to a Polygon article detailing X-Men Children of the Atom, Capcom was adamant on including Shuma-Gorath during early development on Marvel superheroes. Marvel, taking Shuma's relative obscurity into consideration, wasn't quite sure why Capcom wanted to use such a puzzling character, but they authorized them to include everyone's favorite cosmic horror. Unlike most fighters, where you can kind of imagine what their move list would be like just by looking at them, Shuma doesn't have arms, legs, weapons, clothes, or even a mouth, so I can imagine Capcom's poor development team tearing their hair out trying to design his fighting style. Appearances aside, part of why I find Shuma to be so weird is his reliance on charge motions within a rushdown focused playstyle. A vast majority of Marvel vs. Capcom characters lack these types of inputs, especially those who are concerned with rapid mobility, meaning it can be a real challenge to incorporate charge timings into fast-paced combos and neutral. Part of mastering Shuma-Gorath involves determining where to begin charging and how these attacks can start, extend, or finish combos. In the confines of a Capcom fighter, Shuma can shoot out projectiles that stick to the enemy, automatically exploding after a few seconds, fire an eye laser beam that travels full screen, transform into a spiked ball to combine forward movement with a hitbox, and even command grab the enemy for a hard knockdown. Powered up versions of the laser beam and ball make up his level 1 supers, with the infamous Chaos Dimension serving as his level 3. This also functions uniquely as it takes the form of an install, one that makes his heavy attacks unblockable. On hit, they lead into a cinematic strike for massive damage, making it fantastic for block strain pressure. Despite being an immortal being whose intelligence can't be fathomed by mere humans, I don't believe he's ever been a top tier in any of the Marvel vs. Capcom games. Hell, he's even considered to be mid-low tier in Marvel 2, so he kind of got screwed. However, and it would be criminal if I ignored this, there are Shuma-Gorath specific glitches in not just this game, but Marvel superheroes too. When activating the Time Stone, Shuma's normals will freeze the enemy in place, preventing them from moving. This is a fun little gimmick that doesn't last for very long, but if you command grab a frozen enemy just as the stone's timer is about to run out, they'll remain permanently glued to the floor. Even if time runs out and the next round begins, the enemy still can't move, effectively scoring you a free win. Jumping back to Marvel 2, if you land Shuma's projectile and leave the screen, the game has to get rid of them, leading to them instantly exploding. This doesn't sound wrong at all, but what you might not know is that they're always unblockable, so if they explode when he leaves the screen, it leads to guaranteed DHC routes even if the enemy is holding back. There are so many ways to utilize this glitch that it makes my head spin, but if I'm being honest, my favorite depiction of Shuma in games is from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. All of his classic moves are here, but Capcom was nice enough to significantly buff his damage output, as well as giving him what I deem to be one of the best assists in the game. Be that as it may, there's never been a large number of competitive Shuma mains, and it all boils down to his execution requirements being through the roof. In order to play him effectively, you need amazing game knowledge and the ability to not crack under pressure. If you ever get the chance to explore the older Marvel games, I would suggest you give Shuma a go and see if he gels with your playstyle. With how unorthodox his moves are, he's definitely not for beginners, but on his days off, he likes to eat curry with Dhalsim, and this is something I can get behind. A list of weird fighting game characters wouldn't be complete without Tekken, as there have been countless WTF moments during the series' lifespan. You would think that this would make it impossible for me to choose only one character to talk about, but after spending my days and nights thinking in deep solitude, I have no choice but to talk about a bipedal dinosaur. Yep, Alex. First appearing in Tekken 2 before returning in both tag games, many people mistake him for a velociraptor, but he's actually a Deinonychus. This sounds like a non-issue, but it's the paleontology equivalent of calling someone from Ireland British, so please don't do it. Anyway, the story behind our dino friend is that he's been brought back to life by Dr. Boskonovich using kangaroo DNA and mad science, with his fighting style being dubbed Commando Wrestling. According to translations of official character profiles on Namco's old Japanese website, Alex is speculated to become the strongest living creature on Earth when he reaches full maturity. Does that mean he'll be stronger than Launch Leroy? It's as crazy as it sounds, but for those of you who are waiting for an extensive explanation relating to his plot relevance, there's not much to say as he never played a direct role in Tekken's ongoing narrative. Nevertheless, both Alex and Roger Jr. were being smuggled by Kazuya during the events of Tekken 2, which is what led animal rights activist Jun Kazama to investigate, which led to them being involved, which subsequently led to Jin wave dashing out of the womb. So if you think about it, Alex is partially and somewhat indirectly responsible for Tekken 3 onwards. I also love his ending cutscene where he takes off and celebrates after finding his ancestor's fossil. It's so pure despite the jank 90s CGI. When you look at his unique character model and backstory, it's normal to assume he would be his own man, but in both Tekken 2 and Tag 1, Alex is simply a Roger Jr. clone. Sure, they look completely different, but their toolkits are identical. The same can't be said for Tag 2, however, as Alex has been blessed with some new moves. It's not enough to make him 100% unique, but the gesture is appreciated, so thanks Bandai Namco. Down back 1+2 is a tackle for Roger, but a hit grab for Alex, and this looks awesome, it's so vicious. Back 1+2 is a shared stance, with the 1+2 follow-up leading to a rolling attack for Roger and a launcher combo for Alex. Their generic grabs are different too, and Alex even has a special tag throw with his kangaroo buddy when on point. Outside of being playable in Tekken Mobile, a now defunct free-to-play title, and having a cameo in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, there aren't many resources for Alex fans to get lost in. The chances of him, along with Roger Jr., returning in Tekken 8 onwards are slim to none, meaning that their last appearance in a console Tekken game was 14 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long since Tag 2 released, dude. Alex may not be very strong, but at least he has an infectious fighting spirit, and even though Gon in Tekken 3 is pretty cool, my heart belongs with the original Tekken dinosaur. You go, Alex. One of my favourite Capcom games is the criminally underrated Tatsunoko vs Capcom Ultimate All-Stars, but like with many 2010s fighters, this is more of an update to a pre-existing title. By purchasing a copy of the original Japanese release on eBay, we find a mostly identical character roster, although there's one fighter that was removed from the game's Western release, Hakushon Daimao. First appearing in the 1969 anime The Genie Family, Hakushon is a friendly yet scatterbrained genie that can cause chaos with his magic wand, and he was sadly taken out of Ultimate All-Stars due to licensing issues. In addition to a tackle, an anti-air grab, and a command grab that guarantees a snapback, Hakushon is all about set play. His primary gimmick is to summon trash from the sky and then use a special move to transform it into an object. Light Wand summons an attack dog that will sometimes attack Hakushon himself, Medium causes a short-range explosion, and Heavy results in a healing item. Having at least one trash pile on screen at all times is crucial, as it's what allows Hakushon to remain threatening. Well, as threatening as a genie can be, anyway. Also, using the wand by itself does nothing, so you'll be a sitting duck if you accidentally input this attack. A series of horizontal strikes, a powered-up anti-air grab, and a level 3 command grab are his supers, and they're not too bad, especially the last two. A universal rule of Tatsunoko vs Capcom is that characters are allowed to combo into their command grabs, meaning that Hakushon's most damaging combo enders come in the form of his throws. Incorporating these supers, as well as the aforementioned grab special, into your combos are how you'll be scoring high damage, and it gets even better if you attempt a reset. A quirk about these grabs I noticed while recording is that their damage output correlates with your jump height, meaning the higher up you are, the more damage you'll do. Perhaps I'm reaching here, but I like to believe that this leads to Hakushon's game plan being multifaceted. On the ground, you'll want to summon and transform trash to control space, but in the air, your game plan will become focused on grappling. His leaping grab is the only special move that can be performed in the air, and with how slow his normals are, his aerial options are pretty limited. Putting aside my bias towards lovable genies, it pains me to say that in terms of viability, Hakushon Daimao sucks. He's awful. Having command grabs and a snapback in your toolkit are nice, but his speed, size, and range issues leave him open to all sorts of punishment. In a game where the average character can freely chain into launchers for air combos, Hakushon's launcher has 10 billion years of startup, so his standing normals will never combo into the launcher. The only consistent launcher combo I could find was off his forward heavy, and even then you have to use Baroque to dash up and launch. You can also burst during a corner combo to link into his anti-air super, but this costs 3 bars of meter, so you might as well just use his level 3. Because his tackle requires a charge motion, you can't instantly chain into it after his normals, and even if this was possible, the startup kills any chance of it being useful. I could go on for days, but I'm sure you get the point by now. Hakushon's combo routes are abysmal. Even with this in mind, his wacky nature is too infectious for me to dislike him. His animations, sound effects, and general aesthetics are also out of the ordinary, and I always loved how he rides on a magic carpet for his air dash. Before I forget, and I can't believe I never noticed this before, but a few of his attacks were reused for Marvel vs. Capcom 3. His jumping medium penguin kicks were given to MODOK, and his launching sneeze was adopted by Phoenix Wright. Hakushon may be stuck in a dated version of a 16-year-old fighting game, but his spirit lives on to this very day. With their seemingly infinite number of fighting games, SNK has plenty of weirdo characters to talk about. Gender-swapped Terry Bogard, Sylvie Paula Paula, and Choi spring to mind, but in my view there's one fighter that takes the cake: Kusaregedo. First appearing in Samurai Shodown 5 as a yokai, the word used to describe spirits in Japanese culture, Kusaregedo is a beast of a man, and I mean that literally, as despite his otherworldly proportions, he's still a human. Whilst living a normal life with his daughter, Kusaregedo became corrupted by a cannibalistic bloodlust and yearned to devour people's flesh, turning him into a demon upon death. His current goal is to now track down the whereabouts of Rimururu and eat her alive. That's pretty grim stuff, and I can't say I've ever played as a cannibal before in a fighting game. Kusaregedo's grotesque design was handled by Trigun creator Yasuhiro Nightow, and if his goal was to create an off-putting character, I think he hit a home run. Just looking at him freaks me out a little, but at least he's a very strong, if unconventional, combatant. Outside of very slow movement, high execution requirements, and a weakness to instant overheads, Kusaregedo is considered to be a top-tier fighter in Samurai Shodown 5. He has high damage, health, range, screen control, and whatever else you can think of, so if you can overcome the initial barrier of trying to figure out how he functions, the rewards are worthwhile. As a newbie, I like using Far B, Far AB, Crouch A, Crouch B, and Downfold C in neutral, and if I land a weapon deflect, it's party time. His special moves are even more head-scratching, the first of which being a tracking unblockable that traps the enemy in place. It has tons of startup, but can lead to big damage on hit, with State of Nothingness making it harder to avoid. Vomit is a grounded projectile that controls the space right in front of Kusaregedo, staggering the enemy if it connects. Repeatedly using this for close-range Oki limits the amount of options opponents have during their wake-up timings. Forward Roll is a mobility special that sends him gliding towards the enemy, leaving empty space where his stomach should be. It may seem counterintuitive to advance towards the opponent when his range tools cover this much space, but it turns out that Kusaregedo has the fastest command grab in the game. Combining this with the aforementioned roll or Kara cancels after specific normals is the stuff of nightmares. Nightmares that involve huge damage and ambiguous punish timing. Believe me, there are so many extra tools that I just don't have the time to mention, but what's most important is that this rabid animal has the perfect arsenal to bully any opponent. I ran a Samurai Shodown 5 special netplay bracket around 2 years ago, and after being on the receiving end of a very strong Kusaregedo player, I can attest that he's very tricky to deal with. He thrives on his enemies scrambling to press buttons when under pressure, and it gets even better if he can easily keep them out. When taking his revolting appearance into consideration, I can't imagine that Kusaregedo is very popular, especially when compared to Samurai Shodown's protagonists, but I would love to see what he could look like in 3D going forward. Even though I've known about Daraku Tenshi, the Fallen Angels for years, I've never covered it on the channel before, but with how off-kilter its roster is, the topic of weird characters is the perfect opportunity for me to focus on Taro, this green guy with overalls. Most of his backstory is intentionally kept a mystery, but I was able to gather that he's an android that is often mistreated by strangers due to his looks, and with how obscure this game is, the only resource I felt reliable enough to trust was Super Combo Wiki. The website claims that Taro is the worst character in the game because of his lackluster mobility, range issues, and high execution requirements for very little reward. These drawbacks will definitely hinder competitive players, but from the perspective of a casual Daraku Tenshi player like myself, I think he's pretty good fun, mainly due to his special moves. Casablanca is a wrecker string that launches the enemy into the air, causing Taro to torpedo himself towards them. La Vie en Rose, meaning life is pink in French, is a multi-hitting DP, and Que Sera Sera is a lunging dropkick. On a surface level, these attacks look quite straightforward, but thanks to the game's beautiful animations, they have tons of impact. I'm so glad that they have this going for them, as when you peel back the layers of Taro's frame data, it becomes apparent that they're really bad on block or whiff. His safest special move is the second rep of Casablanca, being -6 on block, with all other specials being at least -17. The light and heavy versions of his DP are -36 and 34 respectively, with the dropkick being around -30 on both variations. His supers aren't better either, as they're unsafe on block and hit. Conversely, Taro can dish out enormous damage from combos, with my favourite routes involving cancelling Casablanca early. If you confirm into the second wrecker but don't input the third one, you remain grounded, so you can DP for a meterless ender, with Breathless being available for a metered option. If you're in the corner, I would recommend sticking with the dropkick, as the damage nearly made me spit out my drink the first time I saw it. Like with the King of Fighters, Max Mode is a universal install that automatically activates when filling up its dedicated meter. This gradually increases over time by taking and receiving damage, although you can manually charge it by holding both heavies, and when Taro enters this mode, the frame data on his moves improves. Standing light punch, light kick, crouching heavy punch, and his falling normals are already plus on block, allowing for continued pressure within block strings. With how much damage his throws do, it can be a good idea to sneak them in from time to time, but as they're proximity based, incorrect spacing will lead to an unsafe normal. Even if you work around his terrible walk speed and forward dash, a majority of Taro's normals are slow to start up, often in confusing ways. For example, his standing light kick comes out in 8 frames, but his crouching heavy punch starts up in 7, with both of them being 0 on block. This is only the tip of the iceberg, however, and with how Daraku Tenshi has somewhat of a reputation for being unfinished due to its rushed development cycle, I wonder how much of this was intentional. An enhanced version of the title was announced for modern systems back in 2019, but nothing was ever released, which is a mighty shame. I would have loved to have seen high-level competition at majors. Taro is all about sacrificing advantageous frame data and movement for raw damage, making him my favourite character to play as. He may suck like a vacuum cleaner, but if he hits you once, it can all be over. Our final character is one from a series that I've never touched before, but after laying eyes on his character design during my research, I knew I had to include him. Bloody Raw's Busuzima is a mad scientist who can shapeshift into a humanoid chameleon, but even without this, he still looks incredibly weird. I'm not sure if this is lab-appropriate attire, especially with hair that big. Busuzima in Bloody Raw 4 is one of the more confusing combatants I've ever played as in a 3D fighter, as not only are his animations wildly unpredictable, but there are 2 stances he can enter. Up forward punch leaves him back turned, where he has access to a wide sidestep and a donkey kick, among other attacks, and serious stance begins from a mid-range low. When squatting down like this, he has access to new strings, as well as long-range mids and lows in beast form. My favourite attack out of this is his regular kick, as it has massive range and built-in evasion after it connects. Mastering each stance is a key component of Buzuzima's strategy, as their erratic nature will keep opponents guessing, and if you've conditioned them to block, shatter their defense with a guard break. Within my first 5 minutes of training mode, I was able to find many of these throughout his move list, and if you can get around their startup, most of them hit mid. In fact, a lot of non-guard breaks hit mid too, so ducking against this freak of nature isn't the best idea. I thought this was amazing at first, but it leads to his attack trajectory being very linear. Becoming complacent with your attacks can easily lead to them being evaded or countered, so you'll have to switch things up over the course of the round. In my view, you're better off taking some lows in neutral while defending against the onslaught of highs and mids, and if the Busuzima player gets frustrated and throws out a guard break, you can react and punish accordingly. On the flip side, if he starts using throws, I hope you break them because they take off around a quarter of your life bar. Returning to beast mode for a moment, it prevents fighters from losing life, although your meter will drain when taking damage. This allows you to stay alive when at critically low health, with beast form meter management playing a large role in Bloody Raw's battle system. It's not all serious though, as when you pop this install, Busuzima can temporarily turn invisible. You can kind of make out where he is from the dark shimmering effect, but good luck figuring out what kind of attack he'll do. Throws are pretty much guaranteed against inexperienced players without extensive game knowledge, so you can really run wild before invisibility runs out. If you're ready to go with full meter, there are 2 supers for you to capitalize on. The first is an ultra high damage cinematic super, with the latter involving Busuzima teleporting towards the enemy in real time. It gets even crazier when you activate Hyper Beast form, as this leads to permanent invisibility. The drawback is that you're as good as dead if the beast meter runs out, but I still think this is hilarious. Having to learn 2 stances and beast form while trying not to become predictable is a lot of work, but if the stars align, Buzuzima's damage output is crazy. He won't be for everyone, which you can tell just by looking at him, but if you don't mind figuring out the odds and ends of a weirdo fighter, Busuzima is probably right up your alley. And those are all the fighters we'll be covering today. I had so much fun researching every one of them, and as I wasn't intimately familiar with the likes of Taro or Busuzima before making the video, it was amazing getting to learn more about these unsung champions of weirdness. There are plenty more characters that I could cover in a potential follow-up video later down the line, and if this is something you would like to see, or if you just want to talk about one of your favourite oddball characters, let me know in the comments. There's nothing quite like seeing some zany screwball go wild on their opposition, and with the fighting game genre's continued success, I have no doubt that we'll continue to see some jaw-droppingly strange fighters. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you and your time, and I hope you had fun. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.